Hey there, PhD friends, and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm interviewing Dr. Samantha Burrell, who has a PhD in agriculture and now works in science communication in a startup, an agricultural startup. And as it goes with most of my interviews, you'll find I met her through LinkedIn. She had invited me to speak at her student group when she was at the University of Florida. And when I saw on LinkedIn that she had landed a career outside of academia, I reached out to her and she was kind enough to come on here. Now, speaking of LinkedIn, I do have a short free training that you can download on 3 tweaks that you can make to your LinkedIn profile that will help you stand out to recruiters. Highly recommend, you'll find out in this video that this is going to be important. So I highly recommend you download that training. I'll leave the link in the description below. Now, let's jump right into the interview. All right, so Samantha, I'm super excited to have you. And please tell us a little bit about your educational background.
Sure, I'm very excited to be here. So my educational background, I got my bachelor's in biology with a minor in chemistry from a small liberal arts school in Florida called Florida Southern College. It was not a research institution or anything like that. It was mainly a teaching college. So I got to do a little bit of research while I was there. And then I went on straight into a PhD at the University of Florida for the full research experience at an R1 institution. I went into the environmental horticulture department, but my real training and real research was in biochemistry and molecular biology there.
Great, wonderful. So I know now that I saw your announcement that you had gotten a job outside of academia, and I was super excited for that because the way that we met was through LinkedIn. And you had invited me to speak to your student group, and that was pretty exciting for me as well. So I was really happy to see that you had gotten something outside of academia, because I think when you had first reached out to me, you had said that this was something that you were looking into. So can you talk a bit about your current role and how you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be in this role in industry, totally different and alternative from academia career. My official title is agronomist, and I work for a tech startup called Quadra. And basically what I do in that role is a lot of marketing, grant writing, science communication, really a lot of trying to break down the really complex science that this tech startup is building to be able to disseminate that to different audiences, such as customers that we're working with, and also investors, and then even stakeholders, and writing grants as well. So that is basically what I'm doing at Quadra. And I got here, I don't want to say I fell into it, because I hate when people just say like, oh, it just happened, like boom, like that's never the advice I guess I want to hear, but it did happen very organically. So I networked with the CEO and other executives from Quadra at an industry trade show this past summer that I went to. I learned about their company. They're brand new, launched in 2020. So it's not like I could have been, even searching for a job like this at this company much before that, much earlier than that. And I told them a little bit about my experience in science communication. At the time, I was the executive director of a small organization called the Collegiate Plant Initiative, whose entire focus is trying to bring the green industry and opportunities in horticulture and that industry to college majors that may not know about it. So plant scientists, as well as marketers, business majors, things like that. So I had a lot of experience talking to lots of different people about what I love about science. And I really liked chatting them up and talking to them about it, slipped them my business card. And then a few months later, maybe about less than 6 months later, they reach back out to me and say, hey, do you have experience writing grants? Like, we are really looking for someone to fill this role. I said, yeah, I do. I took some courses. I wrote some grants. I also do a lot of other types of science communication. They actually saw on my LinkedIn, the very header section, you're supposed to make it interesting and stand out. So I had written scientific storyteller. That grabbed them. They were like, scientific storyteller, tell us more about that. we're really looking for someone that would be able to understand our science and tell it in a way that is more digestible for people that maybe don't have 8 years of computer science background. I said, this is exactly what I love to do the most. Like, I love learning about new technologies and sharing them with the world, because I think when more people know about more science, it just leads to societal progress that much faster. But that is kind of how it all happened, somewhat organically. I think when you're doing the things that you love and telling people about doing the things that you love, that type of stuff will happen and it will come along for you.
Absolutely. So there's so many parts of the story you just told that I enjoyed so much, right? So the first part of it was that you were part of a plant initiative. I forgot the first part of the name. And was this as a student, or were you working there? Was this like an employee role?
It was as I was still a student. My PI had founded it.
Okay. So it was something that you were volunteering in, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you took that I love that you said that you were part of that, part of that plant initiative program that was educating people, that was communicating the science, right? And then, you also talked about networking with the CEOs and with individuals at that company at a trade conference, and how combining these, and of course, I didn't even ask you to say this. This is something I say a lot, is make the header of your LinkedIn super interesting. Because if you just put like PhD student, well, there are millions of PhD students. What makes you different, right? And so that you put scientific storyteller, that was intriguing for them. And so they were able to extend an invitation to you to come write grants for them. So I really enjoyed how you pulled something that was from your volunteer experience, something that was grant writing is part of the PhD process, right? And then also combined networking with that to land the current role. So it was a series of steps. Definitely didn't fall into it. I also tell people that I'm like, yeah, it never really is something you fall into. You have to take strategic steps. And obviously you had taken those steps to get there. Thank you for sharing that story. So you kind of touched on the skills that you needed for this role. You're in a science communications role, and you communicate what your company does to investors and to stakeholders who might be interested in the company. And so, apart from, of course, your scientific storytelling, which you talked about, and writing grants, what other skills would you say you needed, or you need now that you're in the role, to execute the role well, if you haven't touched on some of them? And then also, what would you say to somebody that may be looking for, you've said it already, but like maybe highlight more what people can do, or how people can highlight their skills so that they're attractive to employers and industry?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great question, because I think every PhD, we are sponges for information. So we want to hear over and over again, what can we be doing? What did you do? We study paths. We're a little bit methodical. Like you were saying, like you need to take steps to build upon your experience to get you to where you want to be. So I guess day-to-day life, like the types of skills that I'm using is a lot of writing in different mediums. It is so different to write a research paper versus something for people that are not even in the field whatsoever, but want to fund you. That is, it's all scientific storytelling when you get down to it. It's one thing to be able to talk about trends in data, and there's another thing to talk about the impact, and then it's a third thing to pull it all together to make a compelling story to get that action item that you want, which is, that funding, you want to sign that client, anything like that. A lot of communication with people that are not in your field. Like, this is something that I kind of wish I had branched out more of within my PhD, talking to more people outside of the horticultural field. Because when you say something that you think is very well known, it could come across completely different. And that's kind of exactly the situation that I'm in when I'm speaking with software developers, and they're going 100 miles a minute talking about what they're taught, what they've been taught and what they're doing. and I'm trying to just compact it into a sentence that makes sense. And I say, well, do you mean this? And they're like, well, no, not really. It means kind of like this. So I guess being able to edit yourself is also really important. That's something that I've found to be immensely valuable. Because also, a lot of times when you're in your PhD, since you're working on your own project, you can kind of say, well, this sounds good. You send it off maybe to other authors to see, but more than likely they agree with what you're saying, especially because they're in the same field. When you're sending it off to people in other fields, you have to be ready to know that this may be, it may need some massive changes, and that is totally okay, because the more it's like a sculpture. The more that you work on it, the more beautiful it will become, the more intricate, delicate that it can become. So sorry if I went off on a little tangent there, all about communication.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Please continue.
Yeah, so those are kind of I would say, the major skills that I've been using. Obviously, like skimming and scanning research articles outside of your field, something that I do now a lot. But I would say altogether, it's mostly all of those soft skills, those communication skills. And those are really hard or can be challenging to build up during your PhD, especially when you're at the bench a lot, which is something that I had done during my PhD. So I would say, my advice for PhD students is to continue to be the sponge that you are, but remember that sponge shouldn't only be in the lab. Like, graduate school is supposed to be an entire experience. And the only way that you're going to know if you like something or not is trying it out. I mean, that goes for the lab as well. You don't know if you're going to like a certain field of study, but you also don't know if you're going to like something like science policy until you join the science policy club. You don't know if you're going to like science communication until you try to make your 3-minute thesis. You are not going to know if you like outreach until you start talking to third graders about what you're trying to do and getting them to really understand the importance and say, wow, that is really cool. Like, maybe I want to do that when I grow up. So I would say, try to look for all existing outlets that you can. Like, try it out. If you don't like it, that's totally okay. You learned along the way. Like, that is what I think is most important and what I think PhD should be doing.
Mm-hmm. So, that last part of it, okay, is so important. Taking time to explore. This is something that personally I regret in my own PhD experience, because back then I was really focused on just getting out, finishing, getting out the papers, doing the experiments and getting out of the lab and graduating, right? I was really focused on that. And I know that for a lot of PhD students, maybe this is your thing, right? Where you're so focused on the research and on the work. But like Samantha said, explore. It's important to explore. She was part of a not-profit, the Plant Initiative, that was educating people, right, on green initiatives. And then right now you talked about the fact that you try things out. If you don't like them, right, then okay, you don't like them, and at least you know that you don't like them. But if you don't take advantage of, like you said, the science policy club or the science communication club, or I know that at certain universities they will even offer courses for PhDs and postdocs that are at discounted rates, or that are even free. I remember when I used to be a postdoc, there was a mini MBA program that the university offered for free to postdocs, right? And maybe if you're interested in business or going into a business environment, that may be something that is worth looking into. Regretfully, I have to say, I myself never did this because I was just focused on, let's get this done. But I highly recommend that you do what Samantha did. She did it the better way and explore what sounds interesting to you. And if you don't like it, then you don't like it. At least you learned something. I also wanted to go back and talk about the science communication piece of things, of taking a complex idea and making that simple. This is such an underrated skill. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yes. It really tests your understanding of a concept if you can break it down for other people that do not have as extensive of a background as you do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for those of you, I know that this wasn't meant to be a science communications interview, but for those of you that are interested in science communication and are listening to us, right, this may be some exercise that you do where you take a complex idea and you try to explain that to your third grader niece or nephew or cousin or something and see if they get it, right? If they can get it, if that third grader, fourth grader, fifth grader gets it, then like you said, you really understand the topic and you can bring it down to a level where it's super simple for people to understand. That's definitely a key skill in science communication and science writing. Thank you, Samantha, so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people wanted to reach out to you and learn more about you or Koidra, where would they find you?
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is at Sammy Burrell with the little line on the bottom.
I'll find you and add it.
Yes. Okay, great. It'll all be in the description probably of this YouTube video. And then my Twitter is at Burrell Sammy. And please connect with me on LinkedIn if you're interested in learning more. I would absolutely love to have a chat with anyone that's interested. You can follow Koidra as well on Twitter at Koidra. So go ahead and follow us. We've got big things coming in the future for this little startup. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you so much, Samantha.